government of national unity faces its biggest policy hurdle yet. The DA does not want President Cyril Ramaphosa to sign the contentious Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill into law on Friday. The party is concerned that the proposed law will take powers away from schools. The BELA Bill, as it's known for short, was passed in Parliament in May. However, DA leader John Steenhuisen has called for an urgent meeting with the president to discuss the matter. Well, to unpack this further, we are joined by DA spokesperson Willie Aucamp. Willie, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. So some interesting wording that's being used around the BELA Bill, and I'm wondering just how much of it is about the bill now and certainly about the relations between the Democratic Alliance and now the ANC and this government of national unity. So let's start with that. The DA's view on where the GNU stands as of tomorrow if the president does sign the BELA Bill.
Well, Naledi, firstly, it is very important that everything must be done in order to save this GNU. The alternative to this GNU that is currently there is an ANC, MK, EFF government. And we all know that that would be disastrous for everybody. So we've got to do whatever we can to save this GNU. That is also why the DA was so surprised when we heard that the president is now going to sign this BELA Bill into law, whilst he full well knew that the DA, who is the second largest partner in the GNU, as well as several other parties in the GNU, has got severe problems with the BELA Bill in its current format. There should have been a dispute resolution mechanism within the GNU that must have been followed to iron out problems when they arise, and this was not done. So we will do from the DA side everything in our power to protect the GNU, but we also cannot have a situation where the ANC unilaterally acts within this GNU. The ANC is not a majority party anymore. They've received 40% of the vote, and they need their coalition partners or the partners in the GNU to govern this country. So unilateral actions by the ANC cannot happen. We must be respectful to each other and we must be collegial to each other. And therefore, we must have this dispute resolution mechanism implemented as soon as possible to iron out these issues.
Yeah, what happened during the negotiations, Willie? I mean, that's always going to be the question, right? Is where the BELA Bill was discussed, it's understood that the DA made it clear that the BELA Bill was unacceptable the way it is framed at the moment. So what was the response to that? What other bills were a concern for the Democratic Alliance as you negotiated with the ANC the formation of this GNU?
You are 100% correct. We made it clear from day one that we do have issues with the BELA Bill in its current format, and that we wanted the president to send the BELA Bill back to the National Assembly in Parliament so that the National Assembly can make some changes to that and then vote on it again. So we also know that we've got problems with the NHI and some other issues. It is very important, Lady, that we know that from day one, we knew that we as partners within this GNU will not agree on everything. That's a given. We would have been naive if we thought that everything will be hunky-dory from day one and that we will all of a sudden now live in this utopian world where we agree on everything. We knew that that is not the reality. And therefore, it was in the signed agreement of intent that made up this government of national unity. It was decided that this dispute resolution mechanism must be there in order to iron this out. And unfortunately, it has not been implemented. So we urge the president to implement this dispute resolution mechanism. The leader of the DA, John Steenhuisen, had 2 meetings yesterday with the president where he discussed this issue and where he also requested the president to implement this dispute resolution mechanism so that within the GNU, the partners there can try to sort out their differences on this bill, but also for any future differences that might arise. The president notified the leader of the DA and other leaders within the GNU that he will think about that. So we sincerely hope that the president will realize that this announcement of the signing of the bill was done in haste, that they will need to consult with their partners within the GNU, and hopefully thereafter then that the bill can be sent back to the National Assembly due to several constitutionality issues that we have got as the DA with this bill.
Okay, but you raised the issue of dispute resolution not having been, I suppose, a mechanism not having been set up for the GNU partners. And again, this goes back to the point, I think, that was made by spokesperson for the presidency, Vincent Magwenya. And I'm going to quote what he said, because he says, the Constitutional Court has made it clear that the president cannot refuse to sign a bill for political reasons. So it sounds to me like dispute resolution is a political reason. He goes on to say the only ground on which the president can refuse to sign the bill is constitutional reservations. So, how do you respond to the point that he's made where you're talking about, well, we need a dispute resolution mechanism between members of the GNU when this is not necessarily about the BELA Bill and the constitutionality of the bill in and of itself?
Well, Mr. Magwenya and the president know full well that during the deliberations on this bill, when it first served in front of the National Assembly, and after that, the DA and several civic organizations raised a number of issues that is showing that this bill in its current form has got constitutionality issues. So it is not a matter of only political nitwit here and there to get this bill back to the National Assembly. There are serious constitutional issues in this bill. You cannot take away the rights of parents to decide for their children. Parents know the best, what is in the best interest for their children. You can't expect that a national or a provincial government can unilaterally decide what must happen with children. We believe that there are a number of constitutional issues. The Minister of Education, who is a DA minister, Minister Siviwe Gwarube, has written 2 letters to the president in which she explained what her problems and issues with this bill is in its current format, where she set out what she believed the constitutional issues are there. So to say that this bill, we want it to be sent back due to political reasons and harmony within the GNU is not correct. The main reason that we want it to be sent back is we believe that it will not be in the best interest of children and that there are constitutionality issues with this. But it is also very, very important that not only for this, but for future differences that might and will arise, that we make use of the mechanisms that we agreed to when we signed this letter of understanding with regards to the forming of the GNU. It cannot be business as usual and the ANC goes on and makes unilateral decisions. We are now a government of national unity, and the emphasis must be on the unity part thereof. We must, as a united front, make the decisions that's there.
Well, Willie, therein lies the challenge, and you mentioned the Basic Education Minister, Siviwe Gwarube, who was from the Democratic Alliance. And this is, I suppose, what the difficulty of this GNU really then means, is when a GNU partner disagrees with a policy decision that the president has the right to very well sign tomorrow. If the president does go ahead and sign, what does this mean for the Basic Education Minister, who is from the Democratic Alliance, who was then tasked with executing the plan put forward by the president? What does she then do post tomorrow?
We've got to distinguish between the administrative sector in a ministry and the political sector. So let's say the president signs this into law. Then the Director General and all the directors and officials within the Department of Basic Education will have to implement this because it's law and they are working for government in their respective positions. So they must implement this. The minister in a capacity as the minister of that department must also make sure that there is still a communication line with the president to communicate with the president any problems that they got with regards to the implementation of this bill. So it must be a clear distinction between the administrative system and the political system with regards to leadership there.
But does that mean that if I were to ask the Basic Education Minister to come on to the show and explain to us next week, Monday, after the bill has been signed, for instance, how the execution work will happen, that she'll do so willingly?
Well, if she is the minister, she has to see to it that the department implements law. No minister in any department cannot implement law. Once this is signed, it is law. But that brings you back to the conundrum that we sit here. The president knows that full well that this minister and the Democratic Alliance and several other parties raised issues with regards to constitutionality. And it would have been much better for him to respect our views and to refer this to a dispute resolution mechanism to iron this out, rather than to put ministers in corners where they do not have a choice other than to implement something that they do not believe in. If the president respected Minister Gwarube, he would have sent this back and we would have negotiated with each other how we're going to deal with the unconstitutionality issues in this bill going forward. But if it is law, then we must implement it. There's unfortunately nothing that we can do about it. But that is what we want to prevent. And we believe that the meeting that John Steenhuisen yesterday had with the president will persuade the president to realize that they were hastily deciding to sign this bill and that they will send it for a dispute resolution committee or platform, for the lack of words there. I'm Afrikaans, so it's very important to protect mother tongue education for me as well.
Okay, let's wrap it up, right? Because some interesting points that have been made there, and then there's the issue around, the bill may very well be signed into law. The NHI bill is also a contentious point for the two parties that are part of this GNU. And I suppose I'm looking for the clarity from you right now. Are these bills, and I want the word threat, are these bills a threat to the government of national unity as we close off, Willie?
It's very important to realize that the DA is not threatening to exit the government of national unity. The threat to the GNU currently is from the president's side. The president knew how we and other parties feel about this, and he decided to carry on irrespective of our feelings. So it is the ANC that is in their actions being a threat to the GNU. We must protect this GNU at all costs, and the Democratic Alliance will look at all the options available to us should this be signed into law.
Yep.
We will take this to court. We will take this to the Constitutional Court if needs be. So we will look at what the options are available to us.
Well, we'll be reaching out to the Basic Education Minister as well, Siviwe Gwarube. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Willie Aucamp, there, spokesperson for the Democratic Alliance.